Greetings. I'm Brandon Coleman Jr., author of upcoming book here this next year titled Brandon, The Hidden Power of Brand Alignment. I'm excited to be on Head Smack today because I certainly fit in the category of misfit.
You are listening to Conversations with Misfits, Mavericks, and Trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack podcast. My name is Povolni, and I am excited to have another misfit with me. I have Brandon Coleman Jr., a visionary entrepreneur and branding expert. He's got 5 decades of successfully amplifying potential, a noted speaker, author, and Mays Business School outstanding alumnus. He inspires candor and creativity. Welcome, Brandon. Glad to have you on, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul. I'm honored to be here, brother.
Looking forward to this conversation and looking forward to hearing about your upcoming book, but also hearing about some of your adventure. And so I want to hear about the origin story of Brandon Coleman. Tell me a little bit about how you got into branding, but also kind of what led into that journey of helping people out.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm going to try to be brief when talking about myself. My father was a basketball coach, Hall of Fame basketball coach in Texas, and a teaching tennis pro. So I had a jockstrap on at 3 years old and literally played sports, 8 hours a day for many years. Went on a college scholarship to Texas A&M University to play tennis and ended up leaving the tennis team my freshman year because I turned around and said, "Ooh, Dad's not here kicking my ass." So I said, I want to be something else. I'm tired of being a jock. And I was one of the top tennis players in the state of Texas and said, I just want to do something else. So after leaving the team, I went back to my dorm and I'm watching TV. And back in the 70s, there were like 3 or 4 key shows you didn't miss. Leave It to Beaver, Beverly Hillbillies, and Bewitched. Gilligan's Island was one of them too, but Bewitched was the one that really caught my eye. I watched all 4 of them.
Right.
But in Bewitched, Darren Stevens worked for an ad agency. That was the husband of the witch who could wiggle her nose and do anything. I've yet to find a wife that can do that, but somehow was still successful in the world of marketing. Yes. So I go to my English professor one day after leaving the tennis team, and I said, "Hey, do you know what that is called? Darren Stevens does?" Because I literally, in my family, I had zero business background. I didn't know what a business was, other than seeing stores and things like that. I really didn't have any clue. And I said, what does Darren Stevens do? She said, well, that's called an advertising agency. He makes presentations and shows ideas and helps people with their business. I said, I can do that. She said, wow. Oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, so what do I need to major in? She said, well, historically, people in the past have been all journalism. But she said, there's a new way of thinking. And that is that marketing has an upper hand because it's business driven. And what you're really working on when you're working on advertising campaigns and things that sway people is you're actually working on business metrics and alignments that make sure the business side of the deal is proper before you start launching and telling it to the world. And so I think there's a real advantage in a degree in marketing in the business school. So go talk to the dean of journalism and the dean of business. I talked to both. I chose business. Walked in my first marketing class my junior year, and the marketing professor looked to be about 100 and something years old. And I thought, oh God, here's one of these old profs going to roll right over his butt. No big deal. I walk in and he's taking roll, and he looks at me and he goes, "Brand on." And truthfully, Paul, branding was not even a word in those days. Yeah, they used it on Madison Avenue for a package product, but there was no brand strategy, brand this, brand that. Right, and he goes, "Brand on." And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm here." He said, Good to meet you. That was it. Wow. On his first essay test, he did all essay tests. It was in spring and the girls' dresses were short and the fish were running. So I didn't study real hard that semester. And the first essay test I took his, I thought, well, I'll schmooze this old guy. This will be a cakewalk. And I wrote on there, and I picked it up 3 days later and it had F. Said, "Coleman, if you think you're going to BS your way through my class, you're wrong."
Oh, wow.
He became a lifelong mentor for 50 years, a dear friend, and I ended up being asked by his family to give his eulogy when he passed at 95 years old.
Wow.
When I graduated college, I was offered a really top marketing job, which back in the day would be the equivalent of being offered 125 to 150K now, coming out of college, plus a company car. And he had given the lead to that company, that professor, said, "You want this guy." And so they interviewed me and offered me the job. He called
Wow.
me 2 days later and goes, I heard they offered you a job. I said, yeah, man, I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. He said, no. You're going to Houston. You're going to talk to a friend of mine in the ad agency world. I said, why? He said, oh, you need to go talk to him. I said, yes, sir. Out of respect, went down there, interviewed with the guy. He also was very old. And he took me around his agency. And I'm thinking, okay, good. We got that done. I can go back to college and wrap up my graduation. I got in his office. He goes, I'd like to talk to you, son. He said, it's been a good day. And he said, everybody really likes you. And your professor really likes you. So I'd like to offer you a job. Well, I'm a cocky 20-year-old, 21-year-old. I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be a big number. He's got to know what I'm already about to make. This is getting good. I come live in my hometown. Hell of a deal.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I'd like to offer you $10,000 a year, and I'll give you $100 a month to use your car for business.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, how do I not embarrass myself or my professor? And I said, well, sir. He goes, well, what do you think? I said, well, sir, would you give me one night, just one night to think about that? He said, I sure will, but don't take any longer. I said, yes, sir. I got in my car, drove back. There were no cell phones back then, Paul. Got back to my apartment in college, and I called my professor, and I said, Professor Thompson, can you and I go have a burger and a beer? He said, well, I'd love to. He said, how'd it go in Houston? I said, let's go have a burger and a beer, and I'll tell you. So we get the burger and beer, and I tell him. And he said, he looked right at me. He said, take it. Now, mind you, this guy had consulted with companies all over the world in salesmanship and marketing. He was one of the rare professors that could practice what he was preaching. Yeah. He knew business. He was connected in business. He wasn't just an academic. Respect academics, but he wasn't just an academic. He looked at me and he said, take it. I said, excuse me? I said, take it. I said, why, sir? He said, because in 5 years, you'll own your own ad agency. And if you go the other direction, you'll own your own cubicle. I went, wow. And he said, you trust me, don't you? I said, with everything I got. He said, call the big GTE phone company, thank them for the job, and accept the one for 10 grand a year. Wow. I did. And 1 year into that job, I'm at a client Christmas party, and a gentleman who had significant amounts of Crown Royal that night came up and asked me when I was going to start my own firm, and I was 23 point something. And I said, sir, in 5 years, I'm going to do that. He said, 5 years, my ass. I want a pro forma statement in 2 weeks. Wow. In 2 weeks, I came back with a pro forma statement. He invested in me. I bought them all out a year later. 20 years after that, we sold to a conglomerate out of New York, and we're very, very, very blessed. Wow. The only way I ever got in that thing in the first place was asking that English professor what the hell Darren Stevens did for Bewitched. What was he doing for Larry Tate and the Tate agency? He was showing ideas. Wow. So the point of the thing is twofold. One, on that story, Paul, is you never know where your inspiration is going to come from, no matter what age you are. You just don't know. You don't know what God's got planned. You don't know what that inspiration is. And so I think you seize those inspirations. You seize those moments, and you jump to those windows when they open, and you cling to those open doors, and you don't sit there and watch them shut or close. Right. You just don't. And the second one is when you've got somebody close to you that's got a lot of wisdom, man, listen to them. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard when we're young and cocky and everything else, but you listen to that wisdom because it'll take you places that, again, God's got planned, but you don't. And it's his plan I want to follow. So very fortunate to start my firm and sell it 20 years later. And not that we didn't go through the mountains and the valleys, my friend.
Yeah. Well, and that's amazing that the curiosity of what Darren did in Bewitched led you to your entire future. And I think sometimes people sometimes don't pursue curiosity, or they think about things like, oh, that's interesting, and then they just kind of let it go, and they don't spend time with the things that get their attention, the things that that trigger an emotion or a feeling, and they don't spend time with it. And it sounds like for you, it triggered something in you. It's like, that's interesting, and so I'm going to do the next step. I'm going to ask around about it. I'm going to learn more about it. And I think sometimes people don't do that. They don't take time to, when something triggers their attention, when something gets their attention more than maybe something else, they don't think, maybe that's something I need to think about a little longer. Maybe that's something I need to pursue. Maybe that's something I need to ask about. Maybe that's something I need to look up. Yeah.
I think you're right on the money. And I think part of that is gratitude. I'm great. I'm a very grateful person. I didn't grow up wealthy and was always just grateful when something really cool would happen. And I always thought it was God sent. So when something came my way that wasn't in my playbook, I wanted to know about it because I knew it was probably bigger than me.
Right.
And I think gratitude is at the heart of that curiosity. And that doesn't mean I haven't chased some of those curious moments and gone smack into a steel door either.
Right.
But you know what? You can get up. You can get up when you get knocked down.
Right.
But you can't reclaim open windows and shut doors, and you can't reclaim those. You can miss those all day long.
Right.
I think your observation's right on the money.
Well, yeah, and gratefulness is so powerful because it lets us be a little more content with what we have. It takes away the desire for things that can sometimes be a frustration, can sometimes be a distraction, sometimes be a way to minimize the things that we already have. I think when we're not grateful for our family, when we're not grateful for the things that we have, then we can easily get distracted in a negative way towards pursuing the things that sometimes can actually lead us down away from the things that we should actually be grateful for. And then we realize we should have been grateful for them in the first place.
That is so right. And you know, that your observation, your approach to that just leads me into exactly why my philanthropic knowledge transfer, which is all I'm doing now. I'm not running a firm trying to develop new business. I mean, we're selling the book, hope to pay some expenses on all this traveling and speaking and my podcast, the Brand On Show, the things we're doing to just I'm trying to take 50 years of wins and losses, 50 years of success, of thousands of brand alignment projects with hundreds of clients, large and small, and say, hey, entrepreneurs, hey, you that owns a yoga studio or a coffee shop, or you that owns a mid-sized engineering firm or law firm, let me give you this information, because when I'm gone, it's gone, at least from me. Now, AI will pick up all my blogs, all my writings, and all my everything. They don't pick up the stories, and the stories are where the magic lies, because in brand alignment, what you just mentioned about personal living is so true in our best brand alignment projects. When we would get inside of a client and learn what's really going on with every facet of their customer's journey and their branding and how it related and how it aligned and or didn't, then we would be, as willing as we were to find Darren Stevens and Bewitched and what that meant, we were willing to challenge those clients, sometimes in very difficult situations, and say, okay, I heard your 80%. Now tell me the last 20. What are you hiding? Wow. What is your truth? And the reality is, number one, you never do great branding with committee. So I'll go to court with anybody on that one. Great branding is never done by committee. And clients are rarely 100% honest with you. They almost always hold back. And it's for different reasons. Usually they're not trying to be deceitful, even though that's happened a couple of times. Usually they're not trying to be deceitful. They just don't want to uncover the family issues, or whether it's the problems they've got, or whether it was the issue they had 3 years ago, or whether it's how much money they're really making, or where they're really going with their organization, or what is their real commitment, their real vision, their real mission. And so they dance around it, and they want you to do great advertising or great brand stuff or great marketing projects, or make my social blow up, or make me well liked, or get me a lot of hits, a lot of looks, a lot of friends. And that's just not what it's all about. Those are all tools. But until I know the essence of what drives you and your company, I can't get you great branding. I mean, most of my clients that came to me, Paul, over all those years, they didn't come to me because they were failing.
Yeah.
They came to me because they knew something was missing. They knew they were hitting it 50, 60, 70, sometimes 80%. And they said, wow, if we're making this much money at 70, 75%, 80%, what could we make at 100? Perfect brand alignment, being brand on, getting it lined up at every single phase of the customer journey can get you to that 100%. And it also makes working a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wow. Love that. Well, before we continue about brand alignment, because I want to pull that thread and I want to unravel all that means. I do want to go a little bit back in your history, because it sounds like very early on that people were willing to take a chance on you and willing to give you opportunities as a very young man. So what was the thing that they saw in you? What was the superpower that you had at that age that made you stand out to them?
I believe my faith drove my confidence. Obviously, I didn't have enough experience to say, hey, I'm great. I've already proven myself. I want to do this. But I had that kind of spirit and that kind of personality. But it was driven by my faith. And it was driven by my faith that I truly believed that if we worked hard enough, we could do anything they asked us to do within that realm of brand alignment, within that realm of marketing. I truly believed that. And I believed it, and I knew I was backed up by my Savior because he's the guy who put me there in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, I go back to AJ. What's AJ's last name? You interviewed a few podcasts ago.
AJ Brown.
Yeah. AJ was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was from I think he was let me look, I wrote it down. AJ Adams.
Adams. Actually, I know it. AJ Brown at church.
A different guy. AJ Adams' father was a minister.
Yeah.
And so he got an unfair start on us on that way. A lot of people don't get that at birth. But his father was a minister, and then he told his story about how he ended up in branding and marketing and how he's aligned those two to create the business model that he's in. And man, I when I put him down from your podcast, when your podcast ran out, I immediately messaged him and said, man, keep doing great things. You are serving our Savior, and you are serving the world, and you're guiding young people to better places. And what a great place to be on your podcast, Paul, and to share that message. He was phenomenal. I highly recommend the guy and what they're doing. And that's what I felt at a young age. And that is that I felt like, hey, the very, very worst that could happen is if I fail, if I go in and I tell a client, you're going to pay me X because I'm going to do this and I'm going to make that happen. And if for some reason I don't put forth the effort or I don't deliver, what's the very worst that's going to happen to me?
Right.
He's going to fire me.
Yeah.
Now, you do that 2 or 3 times, you're out of the industry. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen for a long, long, long time. But part of that was fear of failure. You know, being transparent, as I request my clients to be. Part of that's fear of failure. When your father is a coach, you know, you can give me wins or you can give me excuses, and I don't want your excuses.
Right.
He's one of the winningest high school basketball coaches in the history of the United States. And he had over like 800, 900 wins or something like that. But it's because he didn't accept excuses. And so I went into business with that same intensity. Mm-hmm. And so when someone believed in me, when they put me on the court, when they put a jersey on me, they put the ball in my hands, there was no way I was going to drop the damn thing.
Yeah.
Just no way. I don't care if I worked an extra 20 hours that week or that day on it, which gives me great conflict with today's current silo-driven marketing box checkers that just want to go, okay, I got my task. Don't care how that fits in the picture. I cared how everything we did for them fit in the big picture, how it all aligned with their business strategy and how it made a difference at the end of the day. And my largest client, when he told me one day after we worked for him for 18 years, he goes, you know why I hired you? I said, no, sir. He said, I hired you because once I took it off my desk and put it on yours, I no longer had to worry about it.
Wow.
And if you can instill that kind of confidence in your clientele and then back it up and deliver, you can build something. And you build that in a lot of businesses, not just branding or marketing. But I think that's what drove me, is that the fear of failure.
Yeah. So what was your first success then? When you realized, wow, this is what I love, this is what I do, and I have succeeded. I have done something well.
Wow, that's a great question. Have I ever answered the first success story? Once we opened the firm?
Yeah. Once, I mean, as a young man, as you said, it was all about the wins. When was the first win that you said?
You know, it was funny. So if you think back to being 23, today's college graduates at 22 and 23 are like 1,000 times smarter than we were back then. They really are. They're just exposed to more and with the internet and everything else.
Yeah.
So to some of them, this story may sound really hokey, but to guys in my age range and up, they're gonna love it, because when these guys invested in me to start my own firm, they gave me $50,000, a lot of money in 1980. They gave me $50,000 and said, okay, and we're giving you a line of credit at the bank and go get them. Okay, you're 22 years old, you're a coach's kid, you've never had anything nice in your life, materially. What's the first thing you go buy with $50,000?
Probably a car. Or
Nobody ever misses the answer to that question. Absolutely a car. And the hottest car on the road at the time was a Cadillac Eldorado Barrettes. Oh, man, with the silver stainless half roof. That was 25G. Okay? That was half my deal gone. But, man, I was driving large, baby. I went out. I left that dealership. I thought, shit, what now? I drove over to the office furniture place. I bought the biggest ass desk they made. My desk was as wide as a barge going down the Gulf Coast. You know that in Mississippi. And I'm like, okay, I got a little money left. I went and rented an office. Well, I didn't check to see that my desk would almost go wall to wall.
Oh, wow.
And then I had enough money for a part-time secretary. And I said, here we are, 50 grand's gone. We better get to work. And that fear of failure, again, drove us. But we had that client's business, and we landed 3 more like within 2 weeks.